So I watched 3 short award-winning horror movies, and I gotta say, this is like a revelation. If you don't have time to watch a horror movie, you can watch like a bunch of them in an afternoon. They're like, potato chips or eating little candies or something. You can just keep going. That said, I have thoughts about each of them. All 3 of these were pretty cool. There will be some light spoilers. I'm not gonna go too in-depth. I encourage everybody to check out these movies. Each one is, between like 12 and 20 minutes long, and they're all really interesting. Please feel free to like and subscribe. We are trying to grow this channel. Appreciate it. Let's jump in. The first one I watched was Better the Devil You Know. Short psychological horror film, very inventive. It did a lot of very interesting things with the camera work and with set pieces, literal set pieces, because the premise, it takes place in like a 70s era sitcom, which then they kind of break out of. It's, that whole concept of like a sitcom stage is so fake. Like, what if the character started breaking out of it? But that's not really what it ends up being. It ends up being kind of like a hellish cycle of regret, and I won't say more than that. But very well done. They did a really great job of casting somebody who looks exactly like Drake Bell from, the old Nickelodeon sitcoms. He really looks like Drake Bell to me. But he also has these like big haunting eyes. So when you get the horror shots of like him realizing something or him being confused about what's going on, it really works. He looks, he kind of has like almost Shelley Duvall eyes from The Shining, where every time it cuts to him looking sad or worried, it works. He looks really sad and worried. But so that was really fun. It does have a little bit of a photosensitive, like flashing lights warning. I had to fast forward through about 30 seconds because I actually am photosensitive, and it was a little bit too much for me, but amazing. It really shows what the director can do with camera work, what they can do with sets and like merging. I'm always really impressed when directors can do dreamlike correctly. And this one definitely does it. It moves in and out of the sitcom premise in a way which is very satisfying, very interesting. And yeah, I like this one. I guess if I'm giving ratings, I would say that the ending was a little rushed. I mean, it is a short film, but it kind of like spit out the premise at the end. It was like, oh, by the way, this is why all this is happening. The end. It is interesting. I give this one 7 out of 10. All right, and then the second one I watched was Other Side of the Box. And if you follow short horror at all, you probably heard of this one. It's a pretty famous one. Premise is a weird ex-boyfriend. There's a happy couple. They do a really good job of doing that horror movie thing where it's like they very quickly establish this loving family. They joke, they cook dinner together, they're so happy together. They hug on each other. They're a perfect family. And then this ex-boyfriend comes over and he brings over this box. And the box turns out to be otherworldly, paranormal, has a monster in it. Has a monster called the Wet Man, which I actually really like that design. It's very simple. It doesn't cost too much money to do, but it is disturbing. They do later where there's like just water in the hallway or something, and it is creepy because it's like, oh man, Wet Man's coming. He's loose in the house. I also like it had good motifing. Like one of the first things that the boyfriend tells the girlfriend is he's like, don't take your eyes off this sauce for 1 minute. Even for a second, if you take your eyes off the sauce, everything's ruined. And that ends up being the theme of this monster. It's kind of like a weeping angel situation where, and again, without getting into too much spoilers, lines of sight mess it up, but it can also imitate. It's also kind of like the trope of like a skinwalker kind of thing where it can imitate voices perfectly, and it kind of tricks them. The monster is rule-based, but it's classic satanic thing. It's like it has rules, but it's very tricky about the rules. That's very cool. My one big criticism, this movie works well. I'm probably going to give this one, I got to give it 7 out of 10 as well. It's very well shot. It's very interesting. I like the actors and everything. There are plot holes. Like, for example, I was thinking, this is one where it's like they could just call the police. You call the police, you say, hey, my weird ex-boyfriend came by. He left this box, and I don't know what it is. Seems like there's something weird with it. Please just come down and take this down to the station. Like, we don't want it. Like, we're suspicious it's a crime. Even after you saw the monster or you saw that it's like the box has like an endless dimension pocket void inside of it, you could still like back away from it. And that's the thing, they actually call the ex-boyfriend to get information about the box. So they even establish and draw attention to the fact that phones exist and they can make calls. But nobody just calls the place and says, it wouldn't even have to sound crazy. You wouldn't have to admit that there was the Wet Man. You're like, there's a crazy Wet Man coming out of this box. You could be like, hey, this creepy guy we don't really trust came by. He insisted we take this box. We don't want it. Like, we're afraid maybe, whatever. It's got explosives in it or something. 911 line. You got to come down here. Sorry, we'll pay the fine. If it turns out to be nothing, it won't turn out to be nothing because the police will get down there. And then you'll have proof that they could actually, where they're like, yeah, wow, this box is otherworldly. This is really messed up. I don't know what to do. At least get that on body cam. So anyway, that's just something, that's why I take a few points off of it, but very solid. There is a basement investigation scene, which is so tense that I was honestly getting scared and like kind of watching it, but like just terrified that I was going to get a jump scare. And so it was really painful to watch. That's the kind of tension it builds, which is what you want in a horror movie. So that's perfect, where you're like scared to watch it. So that's really perfect. And then what was the only other thing I wanted to mention about? Oh, no, I actually, in terms of jump scares, I was really pleased with Other Side of the Box in that it would build these incredible tension jump scares where you're like, oh, it's going to get me so bad. And then the actual reveal would actually be muted. It was like the monster would say something quietly, or it wouldn't be as bad as you expected. So it's almost like a double satisfying jump scare, because it's like it really builds the tension, but then it doesn't shock you out of your seat. It lets the pressure off the valve just right, where you're like, oh, okay. That's still pretty bad, but whatever. Honestly, the more I talk about this one, I've gone into like a lot more detail. I have a lot more thoughts about this one than Better the Devil You Know. So I can't rate them both. I'll call Other Side high 7 and Better the Devil You Know low 7. I reserve that right. That gives me 20 little spots to slot videos. So Other Side of the Box officially high 7, Better the Devil You Know low 7. All right, and then the last one I watched was What Happens After Midnight. This is a really interesting one. So it follows this guy who's working the night shift at a hotel. Already a very captivating premise for me, at least. I don't know, night shifts in third spaces are already like very interesting, can be cozy, Lynchian. I saw other people compare this to The Shining, and the shots are very deliberately like that, in fact, because they do the long dolly takes where the camera is following a character like through long, uncanny hallways in a hotel. So it's definitely inspired thematically and definitely visually by The Shining, which is great. That's a great start. The premise of this main guy, he's like working late. He's got like 3 jobs. They make it very clear, like his boss trusts him, he trusts his boss. It's like a good job, but it's his 3rd job, and he's in the same way that I guess Jack from The Shining, succumbs to alcoholism and his stress. It's like this guy is so overworked that he is kind of maybe losing his mind. It's hard to know. And then also this hotel seems pretty haunted. It's definitely Shining core. It's like you're in a hotel, it stretches on forever, it's very liminal, or, the main character you're following is slowly losing their grip as the ghosts of this, liminal third space kind of re-arise to disturb you. Oh yeah, towards the second half, What Happens After Midnight is very, even more allusions directly to The Shining. They say all work and no play. And he's like looking at magazines about what sleep does for brain deprivation. What sleep deprivation does to the brain, rather. But so he's just Jack Torrance, except he's a nice kid who works really hard and is losing his mind against his will. Whereas Jack was just kind of a bastard and a drunk. Now, this one, What Happens After Midnight, this is probably the weakest of the 3. Honestly, for rating, I'm probably going to give it a low 6. So my least favorite of the 3. It ends on a jump scare, and, like we talked about with Other Side of the Box, where it kind of earns its jump scares, it builds tension, and then resolves it in a way which is, like, kind of satisfying and fair. This one ends on the ghost lady screams and moves suddenly, and it cuts to black. There isn't really a moral or anything to it. It is honestly just kind of like an homage to The Shining. It's shot like The Shining. It has kind of the same themes, but beyond that, it is very garden variety. Without getting into too much spoilers, it's like that there's a cycle of there was a terrible murder at this hotel and it's being acted out. He's sleep deprived, so he's sensitive to it, and he just kind of witnesses this. I will say the interesting thing, there's basically 4 characters. There's the main character, there's his boss, there's the ghostly woman that he encounters, and then there is the ghostly stalker who's kind of stalking her. The ghostly stalker. I thought for a second, the stalker guy really looks like Peter from Hereditary. Looks like Alex Wolff, but without the distinctive mole. But so I thought it was Alex Wolff for a second. So again, good casting. I like the characters. I like the performances in all 3. But What Happens After Midnight was basically just like very heavily kind of cribbed from The Shining, and then it was like, what if you saw a ghost? Wouldn't that be messed up? And it would. But so I'm giving that one a low 6 out of 10 out of the trio. That's all I got for this time, guys. I've been really enjoying movie reviews for a decade now, and I realized I'd never actually done a public one, so I figured I'd start. I got more planned. I'm going to do Beat Takashi's Brother, which is a very interesting, like mostly Japanese release only Yakuza movie, but he moves to the United States and he recruits Americans and they become like his new like quasi Yakuza. It is pretty interesting. I'm also thinking about doing a video essay about how Harold and Maude and this one Chinese film I found, they're both like romance stories involving someone who is like towards the end of their life, doesn't have much to live for anymore. Pretty interesting. All right, title for that one's going to be Maude from Harold and Maude is the original Manic Pixie Dream Girl. And if you've seen that movie, you know that's funny as hell. But that's all I got for this time, guys. I will be back in the next one. Let me know what you think of this one. I'm going to keep doing them, so don't just tell me to stop. But if you have any feedback to make them better, I'd love it. I'll catch everybody soon.